Hello, everyone. Oh, it's not Sunday. I was about to say happy Sunday, but it's not Sunday. It's Saturday, which means I welcome you to Molehill Mountain, the podcast that I do on occasion, except for the times when I don't. So, episode 368. Hello, everyone. Hope the week is treating you well. So, are you sick of me talking about Stellar Blade and how stellar that blade is? Of all the blades I've seen, that one is particularly stellar. Still haven't played the game, of course. I don't have a PS5. But I did want to talk about something that caught my interest a couple weeks back. This is old news now, but I skipped the last 2 weeks. We haven't had a podcast in a couple of weeks, So, let me pull up a screenshot from the game. So here is an area in the game. You can see over. Hi. You can see over on the right there is the R shop, and there's a bit of graffiti to the left of the R, so it kind of reads Hard R shop. And many people. Let me, before I go there, let me tell you what my first read of that was. I read that, when I hear hard R, my mind immediately goes to the American film rating system. In my personal lexicon, the phrase hard R refers to a film with an R rating. Not just a film with an R rating, but a film with content such that it would be nigh impossible to edit it down to like a PG-13, right? You have a movie, it's got 2 F words in it, it's an R-rated movie. You could bleep out or dub over one of the F words and it would get PG-13. However, you could have like a Quentin Tarantino movie that is just wall-to-wall F words, and it's got all kinds of bloody violence in it, or gratuitous graphic sex. That's a hard R. That's like, that is, no matter what you do in editing, this is an R-rated movie. You are not getting around the fact that this film will be rated R. To me, that's always what the phrase hard R meant. So, when I saw this screenshot, and some people are like, "Oh, that's a no-no," is what that is. And the developers of the game, Shift Up, I think their name is, went, "Oh yeah, that's an oopsie doodle on our end, so we'll fix that in the day one patch." I cocked my head like a particularly confused dog and went, "Huh?" And it took me a while to realize what hard R could be referring to. And for those of you who, like me, are just like, I don't get it, it's a racial slur. So the N-word, it's referring to the last phoneme of the N-word. So it ending in a hard R, an R sound, an sound. That's what it can be referring to. Now, it could totally be referring to the movie rating system, but it could also be referring to the N-word, which is a weird thing to write on your wall. So, the question becomes, is that what that meant? I don't know. Can't read Shift Up's minds. But when I first saw this, you can see how it says shop on it. So this is the R shop with a little arrow over there. So it's the hard R shop. So I was like, when I first saw that, I read that, oh, it's a porn shop. It's an adult novelties shop. It's the hard R shop. That's kind of funny. So the question becomes, is it an adult entertainment shop? From what I understand, no. The R stands for the proprietor of the shop, Roxanne. Does she run an adult entertainment shop? not so far as I've been able to discern. Again, have not played the game, so. But my understanding is she is the person you go to buy items and upgrade your suits and that kind of a thing. That kind of thing. So no. So it's probably not. So it's not a porn shop. So okay, hard R. Well, is the proprietor a person of color? And it took me a while before I could find a screenshot of what Roxanne looked like, and I believe this is her. So no, she's even lighter skinned than I am. So at the very least, at least we didn't have a black proprietor of the store, and we went, this is the hard R shop. That would have been like, So, is it possible that, hard could, when referring to someone who is hard, it could be referring to a take no prisoners, take no shit kind of personality. Like, that Roxanne, she's hard. You can't barter with her. The price is the price. And if she don't like you, she will kick you out of her shop. In fact, she's got a, shady past. She comes from the underworld. She's been to prison. She's hard. Maybe that's what it's referring to. So I read somewhere that one of the Shift Up people suggested that the application of the hard graffiti was a mistake. That's a decal that you can... that piece of art, the hard graffiti... you'll find that in several different places throughout that environment. Is that true? I don't know. I've seen several screenshots of the game. I've watched a couple playthroughs of people walking through the city. I've not seen that piece of art anywhere else in the city. Doesn't mean it's not anywhere else in the city, just I haven't seen it. But their claim is apparently they just kind of had some procedural utility that decorated the city for them with some of the art, and it just happened to end up next to the R store signage. Possible. I don't believe that for a minute, though. So what actually happened? Were they thinking more along the lines of, hard R, that's kind of funny because that's sounds like a porn shop or a movie rating kind of a thing? Maybe. Was someone thinking the N-word? Even though that doesn't make much sense? Maybe. But from what I understand, with a day one patch, they went ahead and removed that piece of art anyway, so... Anyway, my whole point is, I thought it was a movie ratings. When I first saw the image, I'm like, it's a porn shop. That's funny. So, main topic of tonight, and it's not going to take too terribly long, I don't think, is, hey, you remember Voyager 1? If you're younger than me, maybe not. Hell, Voyager 1 launched before I was born. It was the late 70s sometime. So, Voyager is a space object made by Earth that some interstellar being possessed in the Star Trek motion picture. Yeah. Anyway, so 50 years ago, I had nothing to do with it. We, humanity, launched a probe and shot it out into space and said, all right, take some good pictures. And that's what it's been doing for multiple decades. So last fall, it started reporting back garbage. And we're like, it broke. So... And it's like really far away. It's like outside of the entire solar system now. So it's not like we could send someone up to service the damn thing. So I had heard about that last fall, and I was like, that's that's a shame. It's still on. It's still active. It's still sending stuff back, but it was apparently just garbage. Big old bummer that. So I was just browsing around and I found myself on the blog of, what is this? The Jet Propulsion Laboratory at NASA. And I saw a article that said NASA's Voyager 1 resumes sending engineering updates to Earth. And I was like, wait, didn't it die? And so apparently the folks at NASA have been putzing around with the information that they got, and they realized that one of the computers on board was broken and was just like dumping everything and sending it back. So they decided to send an instruction to say, ignore this crap. You know, put it somewhere else and just ignore it. Unfortunately, there was no room for any of it, so they had to like partition it across a bunch of different computers. So they sent a day, I don't know, what did I calculate out? A day 17,000 patch and fixed the damn thing. And apparently it works. Now it's sending readable data back again. That's just kind of amazing that we've got a object. It's not a satellite, but an object that's I think my brain is starting to die. It's getting I'm only in my 40s, and sometimes I have trouble recalling the words that I want. But this too many hits to the head, maybe. This thing is 15 billion miles away or whatever, and we sent a patch. And it took a day to get there and a day to come back, and apparently it works. So, probe. Thank you, Chaos. That's not exactly the word I was searching for, but that is definitely a correct word to use. Let me read part of this. The team discovered that a single chip responsible for storing a portion of the FDS memory, FDS is a flight data subsystem, wasn't working. So the loss of that code rendered the science and engineering data unusable. Unable to repair the chip, the team decided to place the affected code elsewhere in the FDS memory, but since no single location is large enough to hold the section of code in its entirety, they devised a plan to divide the affected code into sections and store those sections in different places in the FDS. To make it work, they needed to adjust those code sections to ensure that they all still function as a whole, and references to the location of the code in other parts of the FDS needed to be updated as well. So they singled out the code responsible for packaging the spacecraft's engineering data, sent it to its new location in memory on April 18th, waited 22 and a half hours, then waited another 22 for it to get there, then another 22 and a half hours for it to get back, and it's working, which is amazing. What's also amazing is I didn't see this story reporting anywhere. I had to read it on the goddamn NASA blog. It's like, I know there's a lot of important things going on in the world today, but this seems pretty noteworthy. And this is also, at least to me, kind of a feel-good story. You know, developers patching something and not ruining it. That's something I think we can all get behind. So Voyager 1 is, Voyager 2 is also doing its thing. If I'm remembering, I may be remembering this wrong, but I think Voyager 2 launched before Voyager 1. Maybe I'm remembering that wrong. I'd have to look that up. Anyway, now that Voyager 1 is... actually, I think Voyager 2 is also outside the solar system where there is nothing. They're going to just be taking pictures of empty space. There's just nothing. They're on their way to somewhere and not going to get there in our lifetimes. So, Matthew says, I saw it, but from a bunch of space people on Twitter. There you go. Yeah, I was just, I actually Googled it, and I didn't see this reported in mainstream media at all in the last year. I came across it like 2 weeks later. Like I think I came across it earlier this week. This was back at the end of, this was like 3 weeks ago. So, man. Again, there's important life-affecting crap going on in the world today, but I mean, I think we can make room for some fun stuff. Golly. So, that's a hell of an engineering and programming feat. Sent a patch 15 billion miles to hardware that's 50 years old. That's great. All right. So, let's talk about everybody's favorite subject, live-action anime adaptations. Yes, a genre, well, it's not exactly a genre, but something that's consistently been high quality. Adapting anime into live action has historically been a great idea that has always gone well. He says with a straight face. So, the latest, or one of the latest, well, the anime, of course, was based on the manga, and now it's a live-action film. Actually, this one, this has been adapted in live action at least twice before. One was so City Hunter. They made a new City Hunter film. Now, of course, there's the Jackie Chan one from like 25 years ago. I also hear there's some other country adapted it, and it's pretty good. I haven't seen it, so don't know. But I saw the marketing for for the new City Hunter movie, and I'm a fan of City Hunter. I enjoy both what I've read of the manga. I think only the first several volumes were localized officially, and then I think they stopped. I don't know if let me go grab them. I forget which company did it. So here we go, City Hunter. Let's see. Raijin graphic novels. Yeah, I've never even heard of them. So I don't know if they did much more than the first several volumes. But it's it's about a guy who operates in the underworld, who takes on any case as long as the person asking for help is pretty, because he's a very horny dude. He seems like a very goofy, unserious person who's just lecherous and lusting after the ladies, but he's also a crack shot with a gun. He's basically a very horny version of Raleigh Vincent from Gunsmith Cats. The same kind of crack shot kind of person, although he's a private investigator and she's a gunsmith. But when it counts, he's very super serious. Now the in the comics, Ryu, there's a lot of jokes about. There's a lot of dick jokes in there. He solves crimes with the power of his erection. It's kind of like Hanzo the Razor in some ways. Like, they tie him up, but the person who tied him up is really is showing cleavage, so he just busts out of his bindings with the power of his erection or something like that. They toned that down quite a bit in the cartoon, subsequent anime series, OVAs, and movies, of which I've seen almost all of them, if not all of them, and I own most of them. They're going to be on a bottom shelf somewhere, so you can't see them behind me, but he became it became a lot less erection focused. So, um, not as much bulging. Um, so that in live action, you would imagine, is a very difficult thing to depict in the same way, um, without it being stupid or gross or uncomfortable. Um, so I saw the marketing for the new City Hunter movie, and I was surprised because from the marketing anyway, it seemed to be striking a really accurate tone. Fun and exciting with action, and Ryu is the protagonist is would be a very difficult character because he is a very high energy, goofy, almost he's similar in some ways to like Lupin the Third, someone who's Jim Carrey-esque levels of facial contorting goofiness, but will also go super serious mode when the need arises, right? He's that kind of a character. Lupin also would be a different one to adapt into live action as a complete one-to-one analog from how he's depicted in the cartoons or the animated various features. But this actor, whoever he is, who plays Ryo in in the movie, seemed to really be nailing the goofiness and the energy, while also being able to drop that into super serious I must shoot things with a gun mode. So I watched the movie, and it's not very good. But it does have a lot to like. The action is actually pretty good and throughout most of it. It is quite funny throughout most of the runtime. I've laughed out loud several times. What really sold me though was just the performance from the lead actor, the guy playing Ro. Just a stunningly good performance. I mean, that is, he brought that character from the cartoon, not really the comic book one, but the cartoon one, to the screen. And I was just bowled over by the performance. It's really stunningly good. Sadly, none of the other actors are bad, but Kaori and who's the police lady? Sayako or something? They're fine. There's nothing wrong with the actors. It's just they don't feel like the characters from the page or from the cartoon. Yeah, not really a great movie. Let's see, what did I say about it? Because it's been a couple weeks since I watched it. Let me see what my couple-word review of this was. No, wouldn't have been there. There we go. I said the pacing drags and the editing struggles, but most of the action's quite well done. Many of the jokes land, provoking audible laughter, and the dude who plays Saiba is Ryo Saiba. Is phenomenal, just absolutely nails the character's physicality and the tonal leaps. So, the guy who played his partner who dies, that's not a spoiler. That happens that's like the inciting. That's like chapter 1. Let's see, where is he die? Is he Let's see if I can find it. He's still alive. Well, at least didn't see it exactly, but about halfway through the first book. So if you're a fan of City Hunter, go ahead and watch the live-action movie on Netflix. It's not a good movie, but I think if you're a fan of City Hunter, I think it's worth watching just for the lead performance alone. So. Alright. Next, I saw Hundreds of Beavers. This is a movie I had heard about some time ago and really wanted to see, but it was one of those art festival movies that got a very limited release and wasn't playing anywhere near me, so I had to wait until streaming. And luckily, my library had it. So I watched it the other week, and before I tell you what I thought about it, I was going into this really excited to see it, because it looked really funny. It's a mostly silent, or rather a mostly dialogue-free film about a guy trying to survive in the woods, and there's hundreds of beavers. It's kind of like a live action, if you made a live action movie about Elmer Fudd. It's very literally Looney Tunes inspired comedy. So, like, he'll, like an icicle falls from a tree and it's coming at his head. It's like, oh no! And he steps to the left and the icicle's falling and it just moves over to the left. And so he starts running around and the icicle starts moving with him. That kind of absurd antics. I had read a few reviews and reactions from many people, and a lot of folks were like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've seen all year. So expectations were quite high. I was really looking forward to seeing this, so I put it on, started watching it, and I was kind of bored. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be that guy. I'm gonna be that guy who doesn't like Hundreds of Beavers. It's just too many beavers. Dozens maybe I could tolerate, but hundreds? Oh no! Luckily, for me, it was only like the first 40 minutes of the film that dragged. At about the 40-minute mark, it picked up for me, and I really quite enjoyed it through to the end. It's 90 minutes, I think. It's not terribly long film. And there are lots of beavers in it. One of the conceits of the film is all of the beavers and other woodland creatures are played by people in suits, like mascot suits, which is kind of surreal and also kind of hilarious. It's another movie I would recommend checking out if you can. Keeping in mind that most people really loved it, I quite liked it, but not until about 40 minutes in. I'm not really sure why. It just, something about the pacing or the jokes weren't landing. Really, at about 40 minutes in, when he starts figuring out how to live off the land, that's where it started clicking for me. The first 30-40 minutes, he's lost in the wintry woods and he's starving to death and he's trying to catch a rabbit or a beaver or anything that he can eat, and so very Elmer Fudd trying to hunt Bugs Bunny or Wile E. Coyote hunting the Roadrunner. And constantly failing in, goofy, cartoonish ways. And it's well done, and the jokes were funny, but for some reason it just wasn't clicking with me. I'd have to watch it again, which I'm not going to do, to try and analyze exactly what about the first 40 minutes wasn't working for me, but I do remember that it did not. So, Hundreds of Beavers. Lots of beavers. Check it out. And lastly, and we're only half an hour into the podcast, so we may switch off early today. So Apple, may have heard of them. They're a fruit, pretty good one too. Well, some of them, Golden Delicious, pretty good. Granny Smith, good for cooking. Red Delicious, that's attractive, but not particularly a fan. Jonagold's pretty good, though. No, of course, I'm talking about the technology company. They are releasing a new iPad, and it's thinner. And to show off this cool, thin iPad, they released one of the worst pieces of marketing I've ever seen. Something that is so horrifically wrong-headed that I sat there in stunned disbelief, and I would have thought that this was literally a parody, a joke, except I was watching it on Apple's YouTube channel, so I was like, no, they're serious about this. So the broad conceit of this particular minute-long advertisement is pretty easy to wrap your head around. There is a pile of stuff, a pile of creative stuff. So paints and easels and pens and paint brushes and musical instruments and canvases and books and toys and sculptures, just all of the arts. Everything that's representative of human creativity is piled up in a pile of stuff. And the idea is, we have taken all of human creativity and we have smushed it into our new ultra-thin iPad. Isn't that super de-hooper cahool? Okay, fine. You can at least see what they were going for there. How it's presented, however, and I do want to be clear that from a technical standpoint, the commercial is well made. The photography, the editing, the music, the lighting, all of it is really well staged and put together. Nothing wrong there. It's the concept and the presentation. So you have this pile of artistic stuff representative of, human artistic heights. And it's sitting on a gigantic hydraulic press that's slowly closing to, oh my god, what song was it? It's like All I Need Is You or something like that. I forget what the song was, but it's very on the nose. It's a song that kind of says, you don't need any of this shit, because you've got our ultra-thin iPad. But the thing is as this hydraulic press slowly crushes, a lot of the individual elements of this pile of artistic stuff is anthropomorphized in some really disturbing ways. Like, one of the things is a clay bust that's slowly smushed. One of it is a mannequin that you might use in stop motion anime. Actually, I think there is a full mannequin in there that just kind of splinters and explodes. There's a stop motion maquette mannequin that's like kind of paused like this as it's slowly crushed. There's an arcade cabinet that's it's patterned after the Space Invaders logo that says "Game Over" as it's crushed and explodes into electric sparks. There's a porcelain Angry Birds toy that's crushed. There's a little squish toy that looks like a smiley emoji or something like that. That's one of the last things to go, and it's slowly squished and its eyeballs shoot out. And there's a bunch of paint cans in there, and the paint cans explode, which looks, deliberately looks like blood. And the thing closes, and all this colorful paint is leaking out of it. And it's like, what in the hell are you guys thinking? And it opens up, and they're like, our iPad, now it's slightly thinner. Now, first of all, well, about eighth of all, I have this. It's fun. It's what I use for, the teleprompter when I do scripted videos. But I mean, it's not. That's plenty thin. Like, I've never been using this and gone, oh man, if only it was thinner. I don't know that I'd like this to feel a lot more fragile. I want my hundreds of dollars piece of technology to feel like that if I sit on it, it's gonna just crush like all of the things in the hydraulic press. So there's a lot of things wrong with this. First of all, a lot of the things that are crushed are anthropomorphized in a kind of a disturbing way. A lot of the things have faces and are posed in a way, the posing and the sound design puts it in a way that they're distressed. And they're not just smushed in kind of a fun, goofy way. They're destroyed. They're killed. There's blood, or a representation thereof. But also there's something really cynical and sinister about the, you don't need it really, especially because of the song choice. Again, I forget exactly what it is, but it's basically, you don't need any of this shit. All you need is our thin iPad, You don't need a trumpet or a violin or a piano. We've got a music app. You don't need pens or paintbrushes or paints or canvas or easels or anything. We've got a drawing app, right? All that shit, that's garbage. That's useless. Destroy it. No. But really, so that's just kind of gross in the first place. But I think really where this genuinely comes off is the way, the mildly distressing way these things are anthropomorphized and presented in a manner of distress. It's like, Apple, we've murdered all that's good in the world. So now all you have left, well, it's out of reach now, is our thin iPad. And it's like, and I watch this, I'm like, wow, that is, maybe it's just me, but who doggy, that is one of the most ill-conceived, wrong-headed concepts for a commercial I have seen in some time. Like, I was watching this, I'm like, wow. I'm trying to imagine the number of people throughout concept, scripting, boarding, pre-production, production, post-production, final checks, all of the people who had to say yes to this thing along the way. And it's like, wow, just was there seriously no one at any point who was like, maybe we want to rethink this? Or were they not listened to, or didn't feel like they were in a position to speak up? I don't know. But I was subsequently amused to find out that I wasn't alone in that opinion, because, like, nearly the entire internet seemed to agree. Like, I noticed at first that the comments were off on the video. I'm like, oh, I think they know. And that was just kind of watching the social media zeitgeist, and yeah, pretty much everyone is on the same page, to varying degrees at least, but everyone's like, yeah, that was a miss. I don't know, yeah, that's, yeah, there are some advertising campaigns, and it's like, wow, what were you thinking? It's one of my go-to examples of, I can't believe someone wrote this and it made it all the way like into the movie or whatever. My go-to example is what Storm says to Toad in X-Men back in 2000. So Storm gets pushed down an elevator shaft, and then she like rises up floating, Mistress of Wind and all that stuff. and her eyes gloss over white, and the clouds swirl, and the lightning flashes, and the thunder rumbles, and the wind picks up, and Toad is nearly blown off the Statue of Liberty, but hangs on by the tip of his tongue, which is long and prehensile because Toad. And she looks him square in the face, and she says, "You know what happens when a toad gets struck by lightning?" And she looks up, and the camera pans up with her gaze, and the roiling clouds are circling above, and she looks down at him with her whited over eyes, and she says, "The same thing that happens to everything else." It's just I saw this movie in the theater back in 2000, and the theater was just quiet. Everyone was just like physically pained by like the dumbest line of dialogue anyone had ever heard. I think people were shocked. Like, I don't think anyone like enjoyed the rest of the movie. I think they were shell shocked from that stupid line for the entire climax of the movie. Everyone sat through the credits, and this was before mid and post credits goodies. Everyone was just too stunned, and the lights come up. They're like, "Oh, is it over?" I kind of blacked out after that line. Possibly one of the just worst goddamn lines in the history. And I remember thinking, it's like, oh my god, someone wrote that at some point. Someone said yes to that. That probably went through a few different drafts until they landed on that. It's like, how does this happen? But, not all of our ideas are good, and sometimes we don't catch all the bad ones. I mean, my excuse is I'm my own editor. So, if I let something stupid slip through, it's because I didn't catch it. But I mean, if I had like you'd start, it's like, oh, well, Andrew's a team of one. It's hard to edit your own work. That happens. But man, you're working with an entire team, and you start to wonder. Jason Mabone, hello, says, watching that piano get crushed hurt for some reason. As a musician and pianist myself, I was like, I mean, I've seen movies where, like, pianos get dropped out of buildings on people, and it's like, it's fine, I don't care, but it's the symbolism, it's what it means. It's this, you don't need this, this is garbage, this is useless, destroy it. All you need is the piano app. And to be clear, I use a music app on my computer here. It's very useful. But I also have a very old 5-octave Casio keyboard in my bedroom that, I'll admit, I do my music editing on the PC because writing on staff paper with, a pencil is just a pain in the ass. I don't like doing it. I would rather, do it in an app, but I still need my keyboard, right? I don't like, one of the things I don't like about it is I don't like the implication that all of this stuff has no value and is garbage that should be destroyed. No. I disagree. Jared says, supposedly there was a backlash on the reveal, so it wasn't just you. The commercial? Yeah, I haven't seen anyone being like, oh, it's a good commercial, actually. I mean, technically, it's very well produced. As I said, shooting, lighting, effects, all that. It's a really handsomely produced commercial. No argument there. It's just what it means is kind of gross, and conceptually, it's, not good. Let's see. Chaos is one of the worst lines in X-Men. Can you think of one that's worse? Because if you can, it's probably one I've blocked out. Cafe Fox says, apparently that line was written by Josh Wheaton. It was delivered poorly. I don't think, Halle Berry, when given the right material, fine actor. Did not have much to do, particularly in that first movie, but I don't think any actor could have delivered that line and made it sound awesome, because it's a stupid line. You know what happens when this happens? The same thing that happens to everything else. Wow, okay, cool. I mean, it reminds me of Rocky Horror Picture Show. After the time warp, let's do the time warp again. That sequence, everyone collapses on the floor, and Susan Sarandon says, Barry Bostwick, what are the characters' name? Damn it, Janet. Oh, Brad and Janet. That's right. I had to think of the song to get the character names. She's like, Brad, say something. He's like, say, anyone know how to Madison? And Janet just. She like she's in physical, like that was so dumb she's physically pained. That's kind of how that's the reaction I felt in the theater when that line was delivered. That's the kind of line, it's like, that would be really easy to ADR, right? I mean, surely this went through editing and screenings and stuff, and did no one go, okay, yeah, that line, don't know what we were thinking, that does not work. So I spent this week we're playing, as most of you know, we're playing Trails to Azure on the Sunday stream, and we're closing into the game's climax, I think. Things are coming to a head. Plot is happening left and right, and I've been told by the folks in the chat, it's like, if you're going to make predictions, you better make them now, because plot's going to happen. So I took this way too seriously, and I watched all 300 hours of stream. No, I didn't. But I spent a lot of time this week going back through my Crossbell streams, revisiting some key moments and character dialogues to refresh my memory on what, like our first confrontation with Joachim, or rather Ernest, in the our first confrontation with Ernest, and some other, the first time when we were going on the cryptid hunt and we're talking about the pleroma grass. So I went back and rewatched several moments to re-solidify in my mind what happened, to make better predictions, which I'll do tomorrow morning before we start the stream. And I've got some predictions to make. Jared says this is the week to do so. Yeah, we are currently, we drove our police boat out to Michelin, and the bell's ringing, and Arios and Kia didn't kidnap Kia, just asked her to go with her apparently, and so we're going after him. What's going on? What reveals will be revealed in a revealing manner? So I've got predictions for all kinds of stuff, like who shot Guy? How did Kia get into the auction? What does her name mean? Pardon me. Oh, got a belch and a hiccup stuck at the same time. That's unpleasant. Gracious. So bunch of different things. Who else are we gonna get a pom-pom party code from? So I have a bunch of ideas. And if you remember my grand unifying theory of the Epstein Foundation, they're probably gonna be wrong. So, But that's the fun thing about making lots and lots of predictions, no matter how stupid they are. If you make enough predictions, a couple of them are going to be right, and if you just ignore all the ones you were wrong about, you look really good. It's like, oh man, he's good at predicting stuff. If you ignore all the stuff he constantly gets wrong, so so that should be fun. I need to organize my thoughts into a presentable list so we don't spend like the first hour of the stream trying to justify, although that's part of the fun for me, is walking you through. It's like, who killed Guy? Well, I thought about this person, blah 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 blah. They thought about this person. It's like, just tell us, please. It's like, I think it's important that you know the process. So yeah, I went back and I read, so I watched a couple scenes, and well, a couple dozen probably, and probably like 20 or 30 different scenes. Like the conversation we had with Jorg in the Rosenberg studio, and the few times that Professor Novartis, I think is what it is, showed up. You know, the few times he showed up to re-listen to what they were saying. Reread some of the newspapers, re-looked at the fragment quartz, the D therefore G cult diaries, essentially. Just because the difficult thing about making accurate or making decent predictions is I've been playing these games over like a year and a half, so sometimes it gets hard to remember what happened, you know, in the last chapter, when the last chapter may have been 2 months ago. So, but should be fun anyway. And then you can all laugh. And also, I want to thank everyone who's been hanging out in the chat and watching these streams for not spoiling anything. That's I very much appreciate all of you being helpful without spoiling anything. I much appreciate that. I bet there's constantly times when some, particularly those of you who know what the story is, who've played these games before, when something happens and you're like, oh, I know what this means, and I'm sitting there completely oblivious to it. You're like, oh, I really want to tell him to notice something, but no. Yeah. Y'all show admirable restraint, and I want you to know it is very much appreciated. So, all right, I think that's good for for tonight. So, hope you'll all join me tomorrow for some Trails to Azure fun. Although we're probably getting to the point where it's like. Unhand our green-haired little girl, you villain! And then we get our asses kicked, and then, you know, we have to hit the lowest point so that we can rise up and, you know, pick ourselves back up, brush ourselves off, and, you know, go have the final fight kind of a thing. I don't think we're at the actual conclusion. You know, so I think we probably have like we'll probably be playing this into the summer. So I wouldn't expect this to wrap up tomorrow or the next week. I think we've got several weeks left. So that's it for me tonight. Thanks everyone for hanging out, and hope to see you tomorrow for some Trails fun. Till then, have a good one, folks. Take care. Bye-bye.